students cannot remember anything from the previous courses.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a reminder.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Which setup? Are you ready?
Yes, sure.
So did it go okay?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And
Yeah. So we will just remind you of the conditions. So once we ask a question that you are not willing to answer, you just say, I refuse to answer, and that's totally great, totally okay with us. Also, if something gets on the footage that also you don't actually like to appear, you also say, and we of course remove it. So
yeah.
everything.
So this is a video interview, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and we do try not to make it like an interrogation. So
Yeah.
we have succeeded so far.
Cool.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
So, hi, how was your day going?
Thanks. It was good, not too productive, to be honest. But I've read some papers, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, cool. So, why don't you start with telling us about your background, where do you come from, and what's your current program?
I'm Ukrainian. I studied my bachelor's in Kiev, and I majored in physics, but also studied some chemistry and biology, and then came here to do my master's in physics. So now I'm the second year master's student, and I'm following the pre-Casimir track.
Okay, cool. So, can you tell us about your coursework in like the very first year and actually now?
Oh, I'm sorry, but can you just give a bit more context? We're doing
Exactly.
the Casimir track, but where does your focus lie?
Yeah, we don't really know about that.
Right. So I'm more or less specialized in soft matter and biomatter.
Okay. Okay, so I want you to tell us a bit about your coursework, like in general, and some particular course that you like.
Well, during the first year, I did pretty much all possible courses. So, except for some advanced, theory of general relativity is the second part, and something like that, which is not necessary for me. But I think all the courses were pretty useful for me, because the mode of education is very different from the Ukrainian one, and it's nice that students are given more freedom with expressing yourself in assignments and reading papers. So the courses I'm specialized in, like theoretical biophysics or mechanical metamaterials or statistical physics, they all needed some supplementary reading material, and it was nice. So project education, something like that. Yeah, and do you want to know something particular, or?
Yeah, for example, how does the workload compare to the one back from your Ukrainian studies?
Well, official workload, I mean offline education in Ukraine is higher than here, but I studied more here than in Ukraine because I did a lot of courses, and also I studied, I think I studied harder here. And it was something for me to overcome, so to become a better specialist, and I had a problem, and I still have it, so that I'm not sure in which direction I would like to work later. So that is why I took so many courses, and that's why I'm in this program, pre-Casimir, because it suggests that a student can take 3 projects instead of 1 or 2, and you can try different areas. So now I'm doing my short projects, and I'm trying different areas.
Okay, so the problem you mentioned is that you still do not know which direction to go, yes?
Now, fortunately, I figured out the general direction, but not a specific one. So, in terms of soft matter or biomatter, I'm open to pretty much everything. But fortunately, I know for sure that it is not anything about particle physics or quantum matter. So, but it's nice to use methods of these fields, but it's not in my motivation list. I mean.
Okay, as a person who has sampled lots of courses from the curriculum, from the physics curriculum, how would you compare the content to the amount of it with the bachelor studies, like the level, maybe the depth, something like that?
Well, I feel that the lecturers prepare much better for the courses, and they create their own author problems. So the program is not pre-written, but every lecturer decides it by themselves. Also, like in Ukraine during my bachelor's, we focused on pretty much mathematical part of things. So there was a lot of information, which for me is unnecessary now. So I would prefer to study more methods or more techniques instead of this factual information.
Maybe instead of a theory.
Not really. I mean, I feel that my mathematical background is a bit better than students from other countries, but I would say that it's not so difficult to learn new things when you know the basics, and I'm glad that here the professors do not attempt to give you all possible information about the course, but just basics, and then everything else you can study by yourself. So for me it's better.
Yeah, so the job is rather to direct you.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay, so this kind of ties into some critique we've heard from people on the courses, that they're not specialized enough, that people don't get the feeling they're at the frontier of what physics is. But now you say this is a strength and not weakness.
For me, it's more strength than weakness. However, in Ukraine, we didn't have like frontier content of the courses, and I'm not sure what these students mean about it. But for me, for example, if you know some field theory, any type of field theory, you can read some books or articles, and then you can learn something more, because always you have to overcome this potential barrier. I mean, when you first study the subject, and afterwards you can deepen your knowledge as far as you want. So for me, it's not specializing is not a bad thing.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And also, for example, in Utrecht or in Amsterdam, they have more mathematically inclined programs. So if you feel that something is not enough for you and you want to know a bit more about the subject, or for example, I know that people who specialize in particle physics, probably they might need some methods or techniques which are not proposed here in Leiden. So then they can freely go to Utrecht or Amsterdam, and they can study them there.
Yeah, actually, good thing is you mentioned that, for example, have you considered taking courses in Delft or Utrecht?
Yes, I have. And however, I decided not to do that because this year I was quite busy with my projects. So instead I did some courses here in Leiden, which I didn't take. Like now I'm taking quantum field theory. But I mean, I do not have any strong need in following more specialized courses. And to be honest, Delft or Utrecht do not have these kind of specialized courses which are suitable for me. So I'm good with it.
Okay, thank you. By the way, to finish with the frontier thing, so for example, in cosmology, if there was a cosmology course where the students were only taught that like the basic cosmology, that everything is great, and not mentioning the fact that, for example, the measurement of the Hubble constant are diverging very significantly, and some other facts that we have learned just recently. So what is your perspective on whether these new facts should be included in the coursework, or do we just say that students should actually look them up themselves?
I don't have a particular answer because it depends on the program of the course, which is determined by the lecturer.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know in which context it should be given to the students. For example, it may be some sort of little project or little presentation, so they can look through literature or study it themselves, or indeed it can be given in terms of lecture material, but I'm not sure. So for me it's very important so that lecture material is embedded in problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know which kind of problem can be composed in terms of this particular content.
Okay, because what I mean, the students who say that the coursework lacks the frontier research in that is probably, they probably mean such things that they are not updated that much to the current state of the science. And some lecturers might sacrifice the current state of things for more of the knowledge that was actually studied before. So, what's your perspective on that?
To be honest, I'm not a specialist in cosmology, so
that's an example.
But if you mean my field, I would rather prefer them to include these facts, but not too many of them, only the most important ones, because sometimes this fact can completely change everything in terms of understanding, or if it is not that important, it indeed can be not included.
Okay, let us then discuss the process of actually choosing the master's program. So, what have you considered, which options you had, and what did you pay particular attention to?
Well, firstly, I was enrolled to the theoretical track, and then after you finish the first term, the first semester, if your grades are good enough, you can apply for this pre-Casimir program.
Mm-hmm.
And I was willing to do so because I was not sure about my future research, and my grades were not bad. So I think we are something like 15 students from Leiden and Delft following this track.
Okay, I actually meant the very process before you even came to Leiden.
Okay. So I'm more theoretically inclined. So I considered mostly theoretical problem, However, if I would do it now, I'm not so sure anymore, because I think that for the field of study I'm doing, it's quite important to have some experimental experience. So if I would do it now, probably I would apply for experimental program like soft matter physics, because actually you can follow any courses you want, and then you still can apply for this pre-Casimir program. So for the first term, it doesn't matter too much for me.
Okay, but what about just the University of Leiden? Why, for example, not Utrecht, as you are theoretically inclined, and why even the Netherlands?
It was the funding matter mostly. So now I'm getting the scholarship from the institute, and I applied for the one in Utrecht as well. However, so I got it here, and that's why I'm here actually. But now, to be honest, I'm glad that it didn't work in Utrecht for me, because well, their education is different from Leiden, and for me this mode, I mean, with greater variety of courses, not such depth, is better than in Utrecht.
Okay, thanks. And yeah, what? Let me actually think how to pose it. Yeah, so what do you particularly like about Leiden and about the program itself? Maybe there is one thing.
Leiden, you mean university or the
Like
city?
the city.
The city is lovely. I liked a lot. I walk here, cycle here, and it's a student city, so you can make a lot of contact with people. However, I remember it during pre-corona time, and for me it was a bit better. But I mean, it's a good city to feel cozy, I think, because Amsterdam is too loud, too busy in pre-corona times, and Delft is a bit boring. So yeah, Leiden is good. And what was the second part?
Yeah, so what is one particular thing that, but you know, I can actually transfer it to like the end. Yeah, so let's just talk a bit about your research. So you have mentioned that you do 3 projects.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and you also take courses besides the projects.
Yes.
Okay, so how does it influence your workload doing research and courses at the very same time?
Could you please explain what do you mean? What workload you mean in terms of credits or in terms of?
I mean, wouldn't you feel more comfortable doing just research one term and just courses the other term instead of them doing like research courses?
So this is my particular problem, because I'm not very well organized person, unfortunately, and so I follow the courses to be able to do something else, because when I do the project and it's not experiment, so I talk to experiment people a lot, and it's better for them because they always do something. And for me, if you have an idea, then you work quickly, and then for a week you can have no idea at all, so you just wander and read, but not very productive. So these courses, they sort of shape my time, and they help me to stay active.
Oh, okay. So in a way, they fill the gaps in your research when you don't
Yes.
have. Okay, okay, that's actually very interesting. But what did you? Yeah, so what do you think for the future? How would you fill those gaps when you won't have the coursework anymore?
I, although I consider more theoretical PhD, but I would like to do some primitive experiments because, first of all, I'm a very visual person, and that's partly why I do not work in quantum matter. So I have to build some little models and play with them. So that helps a lot. And also I have to communicate with experimentalists so I can see what is actually not because you can create any type of model, but real world is different. So yes, I would like to do something in very close connection with experiment. But I think that during further career, like PhD or maybe working in some science-related industry, you will have to do not only research but something else. Like you not only can, but you still should follow some courses. And for example, for me it would be useful to learn language. So I will find something to fill the gap.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Okay, and how many projects have you already finished from Casimir?
One big project I have already finished.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you have any idea what would you do with the remaining two projects?
Yeah, I'm already doing.
Okay, so you are set up. Okay, so could you tell us more about how was the process of looking for the projects and approaching the supervisors?
It was okay. So I didn't face any difficulties, and all the people I contacted with were very open and very helpful, and thank them for it. But it was hard for me to choose. But it was not the problem of universities. It's my personal problem. But I chose the project with Martin van Hecken, who is doing mechanical metamaterials stuff. So it was a bit difficult because I was the only purely theoretical student in the group. But it gave me a lot of help in terms of communication with experimentalists, and I actually performed some experiments myself. So it was nice. And these two projects, it was a bit simpler because I already sort of figured out in which direction I would like to go, and then I just searched for all possible groups in Delft and in Utrecht. And I wrote the emails. So not only few groups replied, and then it was easy to choose.
Okay, and when you were choosing your big project, what has helped you to make the final choice?
I have to think about it. Well, I'm a lazy person, and I don't like computer modeling. So I searched for something more analytical, and that already decreased the amount of possible directions profoundly. So, and it was during the long project I was supposed to do some simulation, but it didn't work that well. So fortunately my supervisor has already had his own code. But we worked sort of independently and then compared the results. And it was a great experience for me. Yeah. So it was mostly about my limitations in terms of kind of research I'm going to do now. But for this little project, one of them, I think that it will be some simulations, quite simple ones, but I needed to start doing something in that field.
It sounds like it's really been a personal growth experience for you too.
Yes, it was indeed, and my final grade for the big project is not perfect, but I'm very glad that I did it because I struggled a lot with writing and expressing myself so that it would be understandable for other people. Now it's much better, so yes, it was. I think that it was mostly my personal growth and not so much the real research. Although we now are writing the article, so it's okay.
That's really cool. And so I don't know if you want to.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. How is the Casimir track? What has the Casimir track been able to offer you over a regular master's track?
Mostly. So if you compare it to theoretical track, for theory you have to do 72 credits of courses and one long project. Here you have to do 60 credits of courses and 3 project, and also you have to write a research proposal. In terms of course load, it is not important for me because I have more than 72 ECs now, but I feel that pre-Casimir tracks offers, so if you do not really know what you're going to do next, it's a really, really good opportunity for you, because now I know for sure that courses and real research projects are totally different activities, and only research experience can help you in choosing what you're going to do next. So for me it was very helpful. And also I know that, for example, if you are doing only theoretical track, you are limited to the theoretical project. But for this pre-Casimir program, it's an obligation to do a short experimental project. So I'm now going to do an experiment in Delft, and it's quite nice to gain some experience. Yes, so pretty much it. And also actually last year's Casimir program was more attractive because afterwards you could apply for self-funded research. And this year it's a bit strange because we got some information that it was discontinued. However, several weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we got an email that said that still you can apply for this, and 5 people can get funding. However, I think that next year it will not be like that anymore. So you have to write your research proposal, but it will be only for your own experience.